Ukrainian forces have retreated back to the final defensive position inside of Bakhmut, with over 90% of the city now in the hands of the Russian army. Meanwhile, Ukraine is striking Russian fuel depots in Sevastopol in preparation for their offensive, and Russia launches missiles at targets inside of Ukraine. After a months long stalemate, it appears Ukrainian troops in Marinka have retreated, giving the Russians control over the center of town. All of this in today's Frontline Report. Welcome to New World Econ War Reports for the 30th of April 2023 Frontline Update for the Russo-Ukrainian War. Before we get started, please consider hitting both that like and subscribe button, actions that are totally free for you but are a big help for me to grow the channel. Also, remember you can hit that bell icon so you do not miss the next update. Just a quick note before the report, I am posting a second video today on the Sudanese civil war that has broken out. Please go and check out that video once it is posted. It's a very fascinating situation that deserves a lot more attention than it's getting by the mainstream media. So since we last spoke, the Russian Wagner mercenaries have continued to squeeze the Ukrainian army out of Bakhmut, forcing the Ukrainians to take up defense at the final fallback line. The situation for the Ukrainians is very precarious. On one hand, they hold on to a very defensible high-rise district in the center, but the access roads to reach it come from the north and south and are much more difficult to defend. It is likely that if the Ukrainians continue to lose ground at the same pace, they will be forced to cede the city to the Russians within 3 or 4 days. The first update here is the Russians crossed Chakov-Skogo Street and occupied a church and several other buildings on the west side of the street. The first Russian toehold in the area. This is after a fierce battle for the Industrial College, where we got footage of 2 Ukrainian tanks hammering the newly captured Russian positions there. This video is several days old and was likely part of some Ukrainian counterattack to retake the lost college, or potentially some kind of suppressing fire on the Russian position. Since then, the Russians have advanced across the street. The Russian forces have also made gains in the center, capturing several city blocks of residential housing, the rest of the army base, and the Bakhmut Medical College. As you can see, the Russians have pushed right up to the final defensive position. Advancement on the flanks at this point would be catastrophic for Ukraine, as it gives direct access to the supply roads in the rear. A location that we haven't spoke of in a while is Marinka. We have some big map updates here, along with the confirmation of Russian control over the industrial sector in the south. We have also received an update from Syriac Maps that the Russians have finally advanced beyond Druzhby Avenue and have captured the center of town after Ukrainian retreat from these positions. This now gives the Russians control over nearly 75% of the town. Some very recent news that we have just received in the last couple hours is there was a massive missile strike on the Ukrainian rail hub of Pavlograd. First came reports that about a dozen Russian Tu-95 bombers were in the air. Not long after, we received the first information of multiple strikes within the city. This is a developing story, so we will likely know more by tomorrow. But the Russians claim that they hit both an ammunition warehouse and a train that was carrying a full load of missiles intended for Ukraine's upcoming offensive. Of course, this information cannot be confirmed. It is probably better to assume that those 2 targets are what Russia thought they were aiming for. You can get intelligence and fire at a location, but there isn't a guarantee you'll hit what you think you're hitting. However, analyzing these photographs, it does appear as if the missile struck some kind of explosives or ammunition. These smoke trails seen in the pictures could be evidence of secondary detonations. This goes along with stories about ongoing explosions over the course of an hour after the strike. Zooming out some to look at why the Russians struck Pavlograd, As you can see, it is a very central location in the middle of eastern Ukraine. It has both road and rail connections to all three Ukrainian front lines. It is a likely target for Russian deep missile strikes looking to disrupt Ukrainian logistics. It is also possible this was a response to a Ukrainian strike in Sevastopol. Just a few days ago, we received drone footage and information that a Ukrainian kamikaze drone had struck the Russian fuel depot at the port of Sevastopol, causing a catastrophic explosion and damage and destroying a lot of Russian fuel. This was merely days after the Ukrainians achieved naval drone detonations inside of the Sevastopol harbor, an attack where we still are yet to see any photo or video of the consequences. So, a new tradition I am starting is to give you guys a full view of the front lines so you can end the video with seeing where all of the battles have taken place since the last video update. Since we generally don't have time to talk about every specific battle on every specific location, a lot of these battles are just typical probing attacks by one side or the other. Thank you guys for dropping in, and until next time.